So, here's my rundown on the future of human civilization. And you go, well, Tim, why would you be able to talk about it? Well, Tim Riefat is the United Kingdom's leading expert on remote viewing and the world expert on remote sensing. He's the author of Remote Viewing, blah, 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 blah. And, of course, according to these super intelligent AIs, I look like this. Oh, we got the book. No, we want my face. We want to blow that up. Can we blow that up? No, we can't. But that's what I look like according to the AIs. So if you think AIs are super intelligent, you've got to change your tune because that looks like Blofeld from the James Bond film. Do I look like that video?
No.
No. So you can tell that AI super intelligence is about as smart as a lobotomized cockroach. So we know World War III is coming, and that thanks to the Russian filth and their dead hand mechanism, that the human race is extinguished because the Ukrainians have got a nuclear weapon sourced from Russia, from the corrupt Russian filth in Russia, ready to go off the moment the Ukraine collapses. So the moment the Ukraine collapses to the Russian military, they'll be detonating one or more of these embedded nuclear weapons in Russia, and the dead-end mechanism of the new Soviet Union, led by the new Stalin, Putin, will launch all of its weaponry at America, and America will launch back, and that will be the end of the world. So, if you've got children, kiss them goodbye, because they're going to be burnt to a crisp, and this is the world we leave for our, well, I haven't got children, but the world you leave for your children.
All right. I think that's everything.
Why wouldn't you do it? No thumbs up.
Oh, it's grown-up stuff. Well, back when I was in the Marines, they taught us that if they ever drop a really big bomb, they told us to hold your thumb just like this. And if the cloud is smaller than your thumb, then you run for the hills.
And if it's bigger than your thumb?
They told us not to bother running.
Do you think it's gonna happen?
I certainly hope not. But us cowpokes, we take it as it comes, right?
Can I have a slice, Dad?
Well, let me see if I can't rustle you up a piece.
All right, one piece of cake coming up from my favorite cowgirl.
Is it your thumb or mine?
That's smoke, Janie. It's just a fire.
Huh. Ah. We know the end of the world is Russia, the new Soviet Union, the filthy Soviet or new Soviet scum wipe out humanity because of their dead hand mechanism. You know, who in their right mind would launch all your nuclear missiles if a nuclear explosion occurs on your territory? You've got to be Russian, haven't you? You know, I wander around the train looking at these things wandering around the beach, these feral blobs of protoplasm, and go, yeah, that's the end of humanity. If these things wander around, they just turn every place they land into a shithole. So, if you're the rest of the world, realise that the end of humanity came from the new Soviet Union, and the new Soviet Union dead hand mechanism that launches all of its nuclear weapons if a nuke goes off in its territory. And we know the Ukrainians have got embedded nukes sold to them on the black market by Russians from the Lebed stash, and Mossad have placed nukes all over Russia. MI6 have, and the CIA, but the CIA and MI6 want to live. But of course, the Israelis, if we're going to go down, we're taking everyone with us. And what's the easy way? Just detonate a nuclear weapon, the Samson option in Russia, and the whole world's gone. So if you've got children, kiss them goodbye, because they're going to be turned into nuclear ash or slowly poisoned by cobalt-60 and radioactivity, or horribly tortured and by the ravening mobs in the devastated countries before they die. So this is the future of humanity, thanks to the Russians.
All over the Kremlin, as Putin looks at a battlefield situation that is far from different from the narrative that he wants to create. Russia isn't winning. It's not even pushing. Instead, Ukraine is on the verge of pulling off a breakthrough so ingenious that even the US will be looking on with admiration. Ukraine is slicing and dicing its way across the front line with a combination of drones, technological brilliance, and a healthy heaping of Russia utterly ruining its own soldiers. The alarm is being sounded not by any of Putin's inner circle. They have their noses buried so deeply inside the Russian president's rear that he wouldn't be able to see them anyway. Instead, it's coming from one of the better sources of information about how Russia's military is feeling about what's happening in Ukraine, a military blogger. Specifically, the Russian military blogger German Sedgelayev, who took to Telegram on March 13th.
I tell you what, if you're in the train and you're among Russian tourists, that is one of the Adonises of the Russian race that you see around the train. They are so ugly, they make that guy look like an A-list Hollywood star.
And all of Russia. Many military personnel say the enemy is preparing a repeat of the fall of 2022, when we lost vast territories. But this time the defeat could be even worse, Sedgelayev warned in his post, as he exclaimed that the risk of a large breakthrough by Ukraine against Russia can't be ruled out. Counterattacks are being launched across the front lines, the military blogger says. However, the biggest threat that Ukraine is posing to Russia right now comes from the advantage that it has had since almost the beginning of the war. Ukraine is using technology better than Russia. And that has allowed for the creation of massive kill zones, stocked full of a new generation of innovative drones that are tearing through Putin's forces. We'll dig a little deeper into the drones in a few minutes, but on the kill zone front, Sedgelayev says that Russia seems to be able to do nothing about a tactic that Ukraine has been using time and time again. The enemy is currently isolating the front lines and the entire combat zone. There is no logistics. Delivering supplies, evacuating the wounded, and carrying out rotations are mortally dangerous tasks. In many areas, after the isolation, drone fire strikes begin, followed by a counterattack. The enemy is recapturing its positions, the military blogger declares. What this means is that Ukraine's ingenious strategy is allowing it to cut Russia's increasingly isolated troops off from the support that they need to mount a defense, never mind sustaining the never-ending assaults that Putin demands. This is the kill zone strategy that Ukraine developed, coming to fruition in an insane way, and it's stopping Russia's forces in their tracks while setting up for the substantial gains Ukraine is already making and plans to make in the future. We have talked about Ukraine's kill zones many times before. Those are zones that are filled with drones and other fortifications, often extending deep beyond the combat lines, that destroy Russian soldiers before they ever have a chance to reach their targets on the ground. The Telegraph reports that the kill zone strategy was born as much from necessity as it was military ingenuity, though it is now a combination of both. Ukraine knows that it can't match Russia man for man in terms of sheer numbers. Its solution has been to create what the Institute for the Study of War calls a wall of drones defense, which has been designed to blunt the Russian manpower advantage to the point where it can't be as telling as it's supposed to be. The kill zones are key to this choking off of Putin's patsies, as Ukraine's vast drone production mechanisms have allowed it to expand these dangerous zones up to 3 times their original size in some areas of the front. Wes O'Donnell has also highlighted this in a March 16th article, where he explained that it has only taken a matter of weeks for kill zones that once stretched an already impressive 31 miles behind the front lines to grow as deep as 93 miles. What this does is very simple. It stops Russia's forces from moving forward. That would be important in its own right. However, when taken in the context of the infiltration strategy that Russia started using in 2025, it becomes a true killer of the Russian approach. Last year, Russia started sneaking small units, often as small as 2 to 5 soldiers, into Ukrainian territory. The idea was that these infiltrators would bide in somewhere safe and then hold, await backup that could come through the gap in the Ukrainian defences they exploited. It worked for a while, but now as Ukraine is expanding, that backup has more miles to travel through horrifying kill zones just to get to the infiltrators. Much of the backup dies before it gets anywhere close, and the infiltrators are left cut off from support while they wait, not for the soldiers that were supposed to help them, but for Ukrainian search and destroy units that are constantly on the hunt. For Ukraine, this strategy is a key manpower preserver, as one unnamed Ukrainian soldier told the Telegraph. The drones are constantly watching, constantly striking. It slows them down, it breaks their rhythm, and it gives us the space to control the battlefield without sending men to die, the soldier explained. But for Russia, this is a strategy that exposes all of the struggles that Sadulayev explained when raising his alarm. Russia's logistics are collapsing behind the front lines. Territory that was once thought to be safe is being turned into Ukrainian kill zones, which sets the stage for Ukrainian advances like the ones that we're going to be covering a little later in the video. And it's not just FPV drones that Russia has to worry about. Ukraine has also developed a new range of middle strike drones, which are key to the expansion of the kill zones that Ukraine is creating and then pushing into. These new drones allow Ukraine to hit key Russian military nodes in the occupied territory, such as ammunition stashes, command and control centers, and Russian drone operations.
We see now that the special military operation, which is akin to a special rape operation or a special theft operation, let's rename it. Instead of an invasion, we call it a special military operation. What the Russians have found is that these cheap as shit drones tear into their formidable ground forces, and for next to nothing, because the drones cost fuck all, cause tremendous damage to extremely expensive armour, which are the most likely targets for drones. You're not going to go after a single soldier, you just go after, the tanks and armoured personnel carriers. So that's why the Russians have got these tiny units on motorbikes, but even then drones go after them too. So you can see war has changed dramatically, and that Russia is bogged down in the Ukraine. It should have simply overwhelmed the Ukraine, run it over, and have conquered it, because it's been going on longer than the Second World War between the Germans and the Russians. So we see the Russians caught in the monkey trap. They've got their hand in the jar to get the banana, and they won't let go, so they're simply stuck there. And we've got a new war in World War III. So all of these so-called experts have avoided the elephant in the room, which is the Russian dead hand mechanism, where if any nuclear weapon goes off on their territory, they wipe out humanity. So we know that the cause of the end of human civilization are the Russians, the most ugly, evil race on the face of the planet, and that it's imminent. Why is it imminent? Well, the Ukrainian war was a controlled war with the Russians managing the escalation, but we put the detonator of the end of the human race into the mix, which of course is the Israel-Iran war, where Israel will not allow Iran to win the war. But the Iranian filth, the second lowest form of scum, have played dirty and have got tens of thousands of drones and missiles all buried underground, which you can't get to unless you dump earth-penetrating nukes on them. And then, of course, the problem's solved overnight. So Iran has to be destroyed. All of Iran has to be nuked and turned into glass so that the human race survives. You might go, oh, Tim, that's a bit extreme. No, it isn't. Because of the Russian filth and their dead hand mechanism. Because this is the simple choice you make. Israel will not be losing this war and turning over the Middle East and the Straits of Hormuz and all of the Gulf states to Iranian domination, because they'll have to kiss Iran's arse to pass their ships through the Straits of Hormuz if they want to export their oil and. So it doesn't matter how damaged Iran is, as long as they control the Straits of Hormuz, they can blackmail Saudi, the Gulf states, to pay them to transit their oil and other stuff out the Straits of Hormuz. So even though you level Iran, you've still got Iran making loads of money by blackmailing the world by controlling the Straits of Hormuz. Now, there is no way to finish Iran off by conventional military power. The cowardly Iranians have buried all of their missiles and drones underground and have got all of their drone boats and little mini submarines and anti-ship missiles buried in the cliffs, and they've got a 2,000 mile or 2,000 kilometer coastline with the Gulf. So the only logical solution is to drop earth-penetrating nukes all over Iran and, of course, wipe out the 90-odd million Iranians in the process. You might go, Tim, that's a bit extreme. No, this is the elephant in the room. The Israelis will not allow the Iranians to win. And the Russians, of course, because they're the filthiest, verminous race on the planet and think of themselves as gods and everyone else who isn't Russian as filth and the most racist scum on the planet, will, by definition, threaten Israel with a nuclear strike if Israel attacks Iran with the multiple nuclear weapons needed to finish off the Iranians. Because we know Trump is mad keen on nuking America into the Stone Age. That's why we are happy that the Iranians were foolish enough to put a nuclear weapon in Washington to give Trump the go-ahead for the complete destruction of Iran. But of course you've got Russia that's going to say, oh, you can't nuke Iran because we'll nuke you back. And of course the Israelis will definitely then detonate there are many, not one, there are many nuclear weapons they've embedded in the new Soviet Union, the Russian filth, when Yeltsin, give me plenty of money, I'm a Jew, via my daughter, the Jew, via Boris Berezovsky, the Jew, from the Rothschilds, the Jew, to allow anything to go. So we know that if the Russians stick their nose into the Iranian war, they're going to get nuked by Israel, a Samson option, and the deadhead mechanism goes off, and that's the end of the human race. So that's putting the future of humanity in a nutshell. You won't hear that anywhere else on the internet, but that's what's going to happen. And as the ultimate precognitive remote viewer, you see now that the human race dies, not because of Iran, but because of the Russian filth. Don't trust me, because of course I'm not a friend of Christian Zionists. So, listen to the leading precognitive remote viewer of the Israelis, Uri Geller, and what he foresees too. So, let's get verification of this precognitive remote viewing by Uri Geller, the leading Israeli remote viewer.
Yes. What I'd like you to do is not interrupt me when I tell you what I have to say. Go ahead and ask me the question.
What do you got to say?
Well, listen, I can't promise that, Yuri, because my brain doesn't work that way. And if I think of something I want to ask you, I may well have to. What I want to talk to you about, though, is what you have behind you. I've just been talking to Donald Trump's religious advisor, Pastor Mark Burns.
Yes.
And he is well versed on what must be done to save the world. You've written an open letter to
Correct.
Donald Trump, warning him. Hang on, let me just do the question. Warning him that if he doesn't control Iran, it could be really tragic for the whole of this planet. But you've also said that it has to be done now, because everybody knows that you see into the future, and you have had premonitions about this, which are not particularly good, are they?
Yes, let me now
Yeah, go on.
tell all of you what I won't go into the entire letter, but this is what I told Donald Trump. First of all, I told him that he's a peacemaker and that he is a revolutionary. But this is what I told him, this is the important part, that my psychic abilities give me visions, and I have seen the terrible consequences of doing a deal with Iran. It will not stop them getting a bomb. On the contrary, James, they will use a Trump nuclear agreement as cover while clandestinely building nuclear weapons. Do not go down in history, I told Trump, as the American president who enabled them. Negotiations are not a path to peace, but the road to ruin. It is my duty to warn you. This is what I told him again and again, and I must do so openly for the whole world to know. In one vision, this is what I saw. In one vision, I saw mushroom clouds reaching the sky, vast walls of fire, American bases disintegrated, and US cities ablaze. Iran strikes out at you, America, and retaliation brings destruction, not only to the Middle East, but all the way to Los Angeles and Japan.
But what-
Millions are killed. Wait, let me finish. Millions are killed outright. Millions more die from the fallout. In the other vision, however, I see the United States and Israeli bombers destroying Iran's nuclear factories, not the people of Iran. The people of Iran can't stand this regime. I want to see America and Israel giving a crushing blow to already a weak regime. Now, nobody, James, in the Middle East wants Iran to have nuclear weapons. I mean, look at what they sent to Israel. Thousands of missiles. One morning, an Iranian general will wake up, he will hear voices in his head, and he will press the red button. There's no way, look behind me, you asked me behind me. If by, God forbid, I hope it doesn't happen, but if a paper agreement will be signed, hey, look at how many nuclear plants they have.
What you're saying is that
Yes.
unless America bombs Iran, and the outcome of them bombing Iran could be total tragedy for the rest of the world, if only because of the pollution, let alone everything else. I mean, you're standing up the moment in Tel Aviv, aren't you?
You listen to the rest of that, but you can see that the happy ending is Donald Trump's magnificent attack on Iran, and it has to go nuclear. Iran has to be turned into glass, all of its facilities, population exterminated if the human race is to survive. Why? Because of the Russian dead hand. It gives you no choice. The Russians will try and intervene if the Israelis fire nuclear weapons at Iran. So luckily, the Iranians have made the fatal mistake which saves the human race. Here's YouTube. The Iranians have made the fatal mistake of placing a Russian-sourced Iranian-placed nuclear weapon in Washington, and if it goes off with all the Tesla batteries, that's the end of North America. But thanks to me, it will misfire and not go critical, so the batteries won't release the cobalt-60, and you'll simply get splattering of U-235 around the area, which of course is in a black neighborhood. So it seems the Iranians are super racist. And they wanted to turn all of America black, which will then allow Donald Trump to do what must be done, which is to use the nuclear arsenal of America to wipe out every single underground city of the Iranians, where they have their missiles and drones, and wipe them from the face of the earth. And the Russians, of course, will then be cut off at the knees, because the attack on America will so undermine the Russians intervening that the Israelis will not detonate their multitude of nuclear weapons placed all around Russia under Yeltsin. We know Russia is a totally corrupt state run by Rothschild oligarchs. And the Russians will do anything for money, and they've sold this multitude of suitcase nukes revealed by General Lebed to allow the Iranians to place this nuclear weapon in the Washington area. So as you can see, this detonation that goes wrong because of me enables the US to wipe Iran from the face of the earth and end Uri Geller's vision of the human race and America dying. And he didn't realize how bad it was because of the Russian filth, the new Soviet Union, and their dead hand mechanism that guarantees the human race will not survive. Now, we come to the thrust. I'm thrusting, cameraman, I'm thrusting. It's not at Russians, they're too hideous. The thrust of this discourse is that all civilizations that have developed nuclear weapons always die. They always wipe themselves out unless they have psi that enables them to turn off nuclear weapons. So, how is it that the aliens can turn off nuclear weapons? Because the only survivors of the Great Filter, which we talked about in the past, are those that have developed psi technology that enables them to render nuclear weapons inoperable.
Filter theory? Well, imagine this ball is us on Earth, and throughout billions of years, we've encountered countless catastrophic events, like ice ages, supervolcanoes, asteroids, and still managed to evolve into intelligent life. So the first scenario is that life is unimaginably rare, and we're the first to pass this filter, which is why the universe seems so empty. However, the second scenario is that the filter is ahead of us, suggesting that life isn't that rare in the grand scheme of the universe, but every civilization will encounter an irreversible event, like developing rogue technology or warfare that causes that life to fail, which is also why
global pandemics, nuclear wars, supervolcanoes, or a nearby gamma ray burst would all wipe out life on Earth completely. Now, what if these are a universal experience to any advanced civilization? You've probably heard the quote, two possibilities exist. Either we are alone in the universe, or we are not. Both are equally terrifying. Well, I'm going to tell you why being alone would be a lot more terrifying. Everything that we know about the universe tells us that it should be beaming with life. I mean, hydrogen and oxygen, the two most important elements for life, are the first and third most common elements found in our universe. The Drake equation says that there should be thousands of alien civilizations in our galaxy, most of whom have been around a lot longer than we have, so where are they? Then one day Robin Hanson came around and suggested that maybe the universe lays out a sort of test for any planet where life might develop. But the thing about this test is that it's nearly impossible to pass. The good news is that this test, which is known as the Great Filter, could be behind us, and maybe we were the first planet in the universe to pass it. The bad news is that the Great Filter might be in front of us, a test sometime in our future that no civilization before us has successfully survived. Asteroid collision.
Another one.
We don't destroy ourselves or do anything stupid. I'm sure we're going to be on Mars, we're going to be on the moon, we're going to be thinking perhaps taking our first steps out to the stars. Give us 1 million years, 1 million from now. If we survive, we should become a spacefaring civilization. Now, 1 million years. The galaxy has been around for the age of the universe, 12, 13 billion years. So it only takes a few civilizations to have evolved a bit ahead of us. 1 million years. Well, let's say 1 billion years. 1 billion years is still nothing. You get some civilizations that evolved 1 billion years before us. Why can't we see them? So then people start saying, well, maybe there's a finite life that all civilizations have. Maybe they destroy themselves. Maybe they don't become spacefaring civilization. Give us 1,000 years and we don't destroy it.
And we know now why the human race is exterminated. It's because of the Russian filth and their dead hand mechanism. So if you look at a precognitive remote viewer, you find that the human race dies because of the Russians. The Russians are the end of the human race with their dead hand mechanism. So the rest of the world should know that you're all going to die because of the Russians and the new Soviet Union. So we can see that all of the aliens that are on Earth or on the moon or on Mars or in the solar system are aliens that are able to turn off nuclear weapons. Don't trust me, just look at some of these.
Officers have shared that almost 70 years ago, they witnessed multiple unidentified aerial phenomena.
Sorry, I've just got to interject. The central females turn me gay.
Nuclear bases. Shockingly, the men also claim that these 1964 aerial sightings occurred nearly simultaneously with the spontaneous immobilizing of the base's nuclear intercontinental ballistic missiles, suggesting that whatever or whoever was up there successfully disabled the ICBMs from above.
Friend of the show.
So, you can see that any civilization that bypasses the great filter is a civilization that develops science at the same time as nuclear weapons science, so that the ability to disable the nukes from a civilization is enabled to stop that civilization killing itself. And thanks to the Russian filth, the lowest form of scum, we've got the dead hand mechanism, which means that you are inevitably going to die. And you're going to die because of the Russians, the new Soviet Union, and Putin and his mad dog country. Because who the fuck has a dead hand mechanism? A nuke goes off, we wipe out the planet. That is crazy. But only the Russians, the lowest form of filth, would have developed that garbage and wouldn't have deactivated it. It's mad. And now, because of the war with Iran and Israel, determined never to lose it, and the Russians determined to help Iran come what may, all the human race is dead.
It happens in 1967 at Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana. Nick is on his way to meet a key witness to the event. Robert Salas served 7 years in the Air Force, rising to the rank of captain.
So tell me what happened.
March 24th, 1967, I and my commander, Fred Mywalt, were on duty at Roy, Montana.
The men are stationed in the missile launch bunker, 60 feet below ground.
We had control of 10 nuclear missiles. The Minuteman I. Each missile had an 800 kiloton nuclear weapon.
If ordered, it's Salas's job to launch the warheads.
I was on alert status. In other words, my commander, Fred, was taking a little nap break. Sometime in the early morning hours, we get a call.
On the other end of the phone is a terrified guard stationed above the bunker.
He's screaming into the phone. He's yelling, "Sir, I'm looking at the front gate. I see this glowing red object."
A strange red object is moving like nothing the guards have ever seen before.
They were flying very fast across the sky, stopping on a dime, reversing course, making 90-degree angle turns, making no noise. These guys were very, very frightened. It was a critical situation.
As fear spreads above ground, things are about to get even more terrifying below.
I need you to wake up. I've got to...
Salas wakes his commander and tells him the guard's report of a UFO above the base. Suddenly, the unthinkable happens.
The lights turned from green to red. In other words, red meaning unlaunchable.
Everything went red.
All 10 missiles were disabled, every single one of them.
So what does that mean?
It means if we were given the order and if we had to go through our launch procedures, they couldn't be launched. This was an inexplicable situation.
With the missiles down, America's nuclear shield is compromised.
What's going through your mind when all this was happening?
You know, I'm thinking we're under some sort of an attack.
As Salas and his commander desperately try to get their missiles back online, they learn that a week earlier, another missile launch crew at Malmstrom Base reported seeing the same strange lights. And seconds later, their nuclear warheads also go offline.
All 10 of their missiles went down, while a UFO was overhead. All 10 of our missiles went down, UFO was immediately over our facility.
What did you think when you found out that this had happened not once, but twice?
These were the most sophisticated weapons we had, and so I was worrying that something very unknown, very unusual, very strange could disable them.
Is this a coordinated attack by the same unidentified craft?
You must have reading on each one of them!
In both cases, the weapons are out of action for nearly 24 hours. So what did shut down the nuclear missiles at Malmstrom Air Base? And why?
This was extraterrestrial in nature. I honestly believe that.